Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Daniel said that his armpits aren't the worst thing at the gym anymore. Make the locker room a better place and pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care for your gym bag at your local retailer.
Here we are. We're back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And welcome to Wednesday. With a preseason game on the schedule tonight, a major championship beginning in golf tomorrow, and episode 1 of Hard Knocks in the books or on the DVRs, depending. Golick, nice to have that back now. It really feels like football.
That always seems like the start of football when you start that show. I love that show, and it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for those that may not know, and for that reason, the obvious star of this is going to be Jameis Winston, who's Coach Dirk Cutter basically in this episode said, I know you're not Tom Brady, but you're basically Aaron Rodgers. Start to be like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, for the most part, that's what he said. Time for you at 23 years old to be the great quarterback that everybody thinks you're going to be. And, you know, so it was the normal kind of setup in Hard Knocks. You saw the hometown of Jameis Winston, the tough upbringing to where he is now and such. But, you know, then you get into practice, you know, you get a linebacker cussing out blocking dummies, you know, and you get, I think one of the cool things is what the FaceTime with the rookie running back, Jeremy Nichols and Snoop Dogg, because this running back played in Snoop Dogg has a youth football league in L.A., and this kid was a star running back of it, so Snoop's giving him some inspiration, you know, as he's getting ready to try and make the team. So, you know, it always has a little bit of everything in it. So I love when it comes back, and I do think when you get to that facility and on the practice field and such, you do get a pretty realistic look at what's going on.
I also thought that the show was stolen last night by the motivational speaker, Eric Thomas. He was terrific. I did not get to watch the entire thing last night, but this morning
that's supposedly what Jameis listens to every morning when he gets up, right?
He is a relatively well-known, I have to admit, I didn't know much about him before this, but now I've read all about him this morning. He's a well-known motivational speaker, and I wound up YouTubing. You can go on YouTube and you can watch the entire speech that they used portions of on last night's Hard Knocks, and it's really good. I mean, extraordinarily good. So of all the things that I saw from last night's episode, that was the one that jumped out at me, but one way or another, pretty interesting. And the other thing I'll say quickly before off the top is I cannot believe we've come all this way and you haven't commented on my haircut.
You got a haircut?
I got a significant haircut yesterday. I had been letting it grow out a little, and I decided that it was getting to be a little too much, especially in the summertime, so I cut a lot of it off yesterday, and somehow you've managed to go 3 full minutes and not even know.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We've been together, this is our 18th year?
Yeah.
18th and final year,
correct,
by the way. In any of those times, you've gotten haircuts during these 18 years?
A couple times, yeah.
Have I noticed one?
No, and you know what? It would be nice.
It would be if
nice if just once you said, you know, Greeny, I notice you got. You don't even have to say I like your haircut.
Right.
You could just say I notice you look different than you did yesterday.
So it's it's August whatever.
Today's August 9th.
Okay, and this show is done about the middle of November.
17th.
How many more haircuts will you get in between now and then that I'll have a chance to notice for the first time in our 18 years?
A lot. 3 months. Yeah, like 6 haircuts.
You go once.
I go every other week.
That's right. We had this discussion, this ridiculous discussion.
I try to go every other week, and that way it doesn't
driving a
Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Look like she's doing awful well for herself. That way it doesn't look like that jarringly different.
Right.
But this time
you just said jarringly. You just said I got
because we had put together a schedule or a system where Tina and I we decided we were going to let it grow out. And it was getting really long, and I decided I hated it. And so I went in yesterday. Let me tell you, the floor around me looked as though we had shaved Chewbacca.
So can I ask another question?
Sure, go ahead.
You and your barber have a plan? You discuss things?
Well, I mean, I give her a little, marching orders when I sit down in the chair.
So you guys, it sounds like you filled out some sort of game plan to get a haircut.
But, I mean, there's a 30-second conversation that takes place. I want to leave it. For a while, I said to her, I want to let it grow longer. Let's just sort of clean it up a little bit, but let's let it grow out a little bit and see how I like it.
Right.
And then yesterday I sat down and I said, remember how we were growing it out? I hate it. And so we chopped it off. We chopped it. We went in there and we chopped it.
The discussion, I walk in, I see my guy, hey, John. He says, hey, Mike. He says the same. I said, yep, and that's it.
Now, for those of you watching on television, they're going to put up a picture of me from yesterday. Well, it's
exactly the same.
Well,
it looks exactly the same.
That is
for
not
those listening on radio only. We put a split screen up of you yesterday. You got your hair cut after the show yesterday. I take it right. It wouldn't be before. It's exactly the same.
That is not
you got 3 hairs cut, and you probably paid $80.
First of all, it was $24.
Are you kidding me?
Could we? Could we have gotten a more representative shot?
It's a picture of your head with your hair on it. What more representative shot
me with that expression on my face in the middle of it? Thought my eyes are like half closed. They look like I'm in a Cheech and Chong movie. It's just a ridiculously.
Well, that's a you problem. Okay?
Well, I'm just saying. I look like I'm.
But we can see the hair on your head, and it looks exactly the same as today.
I don't think it looks the same. It actually looks more different than it would appear.
Quite honestly,
it's a ridiculous shot.
Quite honestly, your hair looks a little darker today.
No,
something else you did.
I did not do a
thing.
So
you cut 3 hairs off it and colored it.
There was no coloring.
All right.
Absolutely none. This was done in a public place. I have witnesses. All right, I'm certainly glad I brought that up. Let's move on.
Off the top.
Off the top. Here we go, Golick. And Chris Sale continues to pitch his way toward an American League Cy Young Award. Another dominant performance last night for the Red Sox.
Yeah, he had 13 strikeouts, 8 innings he threw. It's his 10th career game with no runs allowed and at least 12 strikeouts, breaking a tie with Clayton Kershaw for the most among active pitchers, and the Rays don't want to see him anymore either. He's averaging 13 and a half strikeouts per 9 innings in his career against the Rays. Overall, it was Sale's 15th game with 10 or more strikeouts this season. The only other Red Sox pitcher, I think people can figure this out, with at least 15 10 strikeout games in a single season. Pedro Martinez did it twice. In 2000, he did 15 times, and in 1999, the year before, he did it 19 times.
Off the top.
Meanwhile, the next favorite to win the American League Cy Young did not disappoint either, and that's your guy, Corey Kluber.
Yep, be leading the Indians to the World Series this year. Kluber, he pitched a complete game for the 4th time this season, tying his career high. His 11 strikeouts mean he and Randy Johnson are the only pitchers to strike out at least 8 batters in 13 straight games in a single season since the mound was moved to its current distance a long time ago.
Off the top.
I mentioned we got football tonight, and we do. The Panthers and the Texans, week 1 of the NFL preseason is upon us.
No Cam Newton tonight, still, coming back from the shoulder situation, but we'll see Deshaun Watson. Tom Savage will get the start for the Houston Texans. You'll see Deshaun Watson, and on the other side, the 8th pick overall, Christian McCaffrey, who has really been a buzz in that camp. I remember when he did a one-on-one in pass against Luke Kuechly, caught the ball, put a move on him. That was on social media forever.
Yep.
You know what he did there. So a lot of people looking at how he's going to help that offense. So those are the 2 rookies people are looking at tonight.
And the veteran J.J. Watt also expected.
He is going to play tonight. Yes,
you get a little action
off the top
tonight. I find this an interesting story. The Patriots became the first NFL team to buy their own plane to fly to games, or I should say that differently. They bought planes. So no other team, according to our Darren Ravel, no other NFL team owns its own plane. They lease them and all of that. The Patriots didn't just get one, they got 2. They got 1, they got a backup.
They bought 2 and not, some little prop jobs. They bought 2 767 Boeing wide-body jets, immediately retrofitted every seat, tore them out, and put all first-class seats in there. And that's what happens when you have all those Lombardi trophies, is you can do things like that, and they're just going to travel in style, or I should say, forgetting style, for the players' sake, they're going to travel in comfort, because that was always a thing. When we got on our charter planes, who got the first-class seats? And every team did it differently, whether it was starters or vets. All you knew is if you were a young guy, you were sitting in the back, sometimes 3 across, depending on the plane. Normally it was 2 in a 3, but these are all first-class seats.
And finally,
off the top.
Floyd Mayweather sat down with our Stephen A. Smith in Las Vegas yesterday, a couple of weeks in advance of his fight with Conor McGregor. And as you'll hear in a moment, he's selling you on Conor McGregor after a 4-city tour in which he called him every nasty name you could imagine. Now all he talks about is how Conor McGregor has the advantage over him on paper.
Boy, it's amazing how this whole thing goes. When we all say Mayweather will win easily, they go on this tour, yell at one another, and then you find out all the seats aren't sold in the arena yet. Now, all of a sudden, Mayweather, McGregor, he's a fighter. he should be a favorite over me. This is going to be a real fight, gang. Buy tickets, buy pay-per-view, buy more. And that's what this is all about.
You'll hear from that in just a moment. Mike and Mike Off the Top, presented by Progressive Insurance. Last year, over 3 million drivers switched to Progressive. Call or click today. Find out if you could save. I just opened up my Twitter inbox here quickly, and I see, here's from Maria. Greeny, I love you, but it looks exactly the same. It doesn't look the same.
It looks exactly the same.
That's a ridiculous camera shot.
Andrea,
please
post that. Please post that up. I'll retweet it. Do everything we can to get that out.
We get a better picture of me from yesterday.
What do you want as a better picture? It shows your head with all your hair on it.
Give me a shot of me straight forward. No, get that one down. Why are we putting that up there?
You're basically tilting your head just a bit.
But I'm not facing the camera.
I mean, it's a bit off. You can still see
like
your
mug
hair.
Shot. It's like here's the one forward, and then here's the one facing
sideways. It is not a mug shot. Now you're lying. Now you're just flat out lying because you've been had.
I'm not at all comfortable with it. What, you're suggesting I'm making this up? I didn't get a haircut yesterday?
No. I'm suggesting you are overstating something I know you never do. The amount of hair. All of a sudden, you're talking about the hair that's laying on the ground there. There had to be 3 strands of hair.
Oh, no. It was, I'm telling you right now, I mean, it was like we shaved down Chewbacca.
Whatever.
That's how much hair was on the ground around me when I was done with this haircut. Okay. They're trying desperately to get it.
That's straight on. There is now a picture up that is straight
and look
on.
how much more hair
there is
I had
no more hair on your head.
Yes, there's a lot more hair there.
Get a snapshot of that one. Andrea, get it up. And so if those that are just listening on the radio, at some point be able to see it on social media, and you all will be able to join in the mocking of Mike Greenberg.
All right. It's mockery, but that's it doesn't look as different as it feels. I'll tell you that right now. It feels awfully different.
All of a sudden, you're
as I look at that shot, I can see where you may think that. I can see where the uneducated, those who are not follically, studious.
Right. She went down and got close to the roots, as Chewbacca was laying on the ground around you.
I actually think it looks pretty good. Whatever. Okay, we're Mike and Mike. Let's get to business here. Floyd Mayweather sat down with Stephen A. Smith yesterday in Las Vegas. And look, here's the thing that I will say about Floyd Mayweather. There's any number of things you could say about him, and many of them not so nice. But the one thing I'll say is he makes no bones about the fact that he's a businessman. He's not trying to pretend otherwise.
Nope.
So, guys, get the one ready. We have some technical stuff today. So get the one ready where he says, look, we're all going to be smiling after this fight is over. Have that one ready in a minute. But first, here's the one that got all the attention, where Floyd Mayweather basically said, oh, yeah, for all intents and purposes, Conor McGregor, who has never boxed in his entire life professionally, should be the favorite in this thing.
He's a lot younger. You know, when you look at the two on paper, when you look at myself and you look at Conor McGregor, on paper, he's taller, has a longer reach. He's a bigger man from top to bottom, a lot younger. So youth is on his side. And I've been off a couple years. So, and now I'm in my 40s. So, you know, if you look at everything on paper, it leans towards Conor McGregor.
Nice sell job. I mean, listen, that's all he's doing. There is no chance on God's green earth he thinks he's going to step in that ring and believe anything he's selling right now. Everything they do is to sell tickets and sell pay-per-view. That's everything they're doing right now. And I'm not ripping it. I get it. But I know to take that soundbite, as far as I'm concerned, with a grain of salt, saying he doesn't mean a damn thing he's saying there.
Well, look, let's face it. This is a sporting event that everyone understands is being put on for no other reason.
Right.
It's not as though this is doing anything for Mayweather's legacy.
Nope.
Beating Conor McGregor, whether it gets them, some people won't even count. But some people won't even count that.
Right.
I mean, there will be an asterisk in the minds of the boxing purist that will certainly not give Mayweather this one, considering he's fighting someone who has never fought in this discipline before professionally. So he has if he was going to come back for a fight, for whatever the best fight out there was, it would have been 500 people he would have fought before he would have fought this.
Right.
So there was no reason to bother pretending that this was about anything other than money anyway.
And this is a monster payday for Conor McGregor, who I don't think will ever fight in the MMA ring again. I think he'll try and go above that as far as whatever he's going to do ancillary on the outside of that, but still be involved in it. But do we think he's getting unless? Well, he's never going to get a payday like this again unless they can build some monster payday that it's worthwhile money-wise to him to get back in the ring. Otherwise, I don't think you'll see it.
So the one where he says we're all going to come away winners of this thing, that's the orange one? Is that the one you're telling me to hit? Okay,
we're trying here.
In my ear, I heard, we think so.
Yeah, it's just so.
Let's hope for the best.
Come along for a ride with us.
And I don't even think it's orange. To me, that's brown. Now, we've had this colored blind debate before. You look at this button over here, you tell me that's orange.
But you think our orange chairs are red. So
they are red, and this thing is not orange either. But either way, Here, we hope,
button.
is the soundbite where Floyd Mayweather...
Hit the button or I'm giving you a haircut.
I'm going to hit it, where he says that no matter what happens, we all come away winners.
When you're fighting at this level, there's no loser. When you're fighting at this level, there's no loser. I mean, I ain't never known a man to make hundreds and hundreds of millions that's a loser. I'm going to walk up that ring with my head up high.
If you lost, I'm 49-0?
I'm going to walk out that ring with my head high. I'm a fighter.
What about your hand? Is your hand going to be raised high?
I'm going to walk out the ring happy.
Yeah. I mean, and what he's saying there, when you're fighting at this level, he's talking about money level, not professional level. He's talking about money level, and he's right. And as I said all along, when this fight's over and Mayweather wins this fight, which I have no doubt that he will, that Conor McGregor they should meet in the locker room and clink glasses of champagne and say, we did it. Because there are no losers. As far as those two camps are concerned, there are no losers in this one. They are going to walk away with Floyd another, $100+ million payday, and Conor McGregor by far the biggest payday of his life.
There's a 29-second one that I was sent here, guys, that says Mayweather, happiest people on earth sound is the one that I'm looking for. Let me know if we have that, because, again, it's the only reason I want to play it for the audience here is that it is a demonstration of the fact that he's not making any bones about the fact
he's not.
that this is a money grab. And all of us are participating in it.
Yes.
All of us are willingly putting ourselves in this. The people who pay $40 to go to a movie theater and watch this thing, the people who pay the $99 to watch it in their homes, and whatever it is, whatever despicable things were said in their media availabilities, their press conferences where they were late and they were nasty and they said one thing after another that made you want to take a shower afterwards for watching, and all of the history of Mayweather and everything else. We're sitting here opening up our own pocketbooks and handing this money directly to them. He is
saying that's what it's about, and there are going to be millions of people willing to give money to it. That's the way this is going to be.
Here's one more. Here's Mayweather, again, making no bones about it.
August 26th, that day, me and McGregor are going to be the two happiest in Showtime. Me, McGregor, Showtime, and the UFC, we're going to be the happiest people on earth. August 26th. We talking about $1 billion fight. We talking about $1 billion fight, and I've already in the sport of boxing, I've already made somewhere upwards of $800 million.
Listen, I mean, you got to give the guy that. He is a business guy. He understands it. He understands what his value is, and he has maximized it. And he's unapologetic about it. And I mean, that part of it, I give him credit for not trying to say, listen, this is a show that the world has been waiting to see, and this is going to be an unbelievable test, and will it be the MMA guy? He's not trying to sell it that way, which you might have guessed they would.
He's selling it for what it actually is. We're going to make a ton of money, and a lot of you are going to buy it, and we want to give you a reason to buy it. But now we're starting with this last interview. We may be starting now we're into a little bit of the sell job. Oh, on paper, he's better, he's bigger, he's better. Stop. I mean, just come on.
Yeah, I mean, look, nothing is going to change the fact that if Mayweather doesn't win, it will be one of the colossal upsets of all time.
Without question.
People whose opinions I regard, who know much more about boxing than I do, like Max Kellerman, who don't think that McGregor will even touch Mayweather, and maybe he won't. I have no way of knowing that at all. Again, I've said it from the very beginning. There is a circus. I acknowledge fully. It is a carnival-esque, circus-esque level of interest I have in this. It is not as a sporting event. It is as some kind of spectacle that I'm just curious enough to see what happens that I'm in. And I've acknowledged it from the very beginning. It makes me a sucker, and a sucker I am.
Yeah. And, you heard Mayweather say he's going to walk out with his head held. As I said, he's the win situation he is the amount of money, of which he has plenty of it, owes a little bit to Uncle Sam still, but, he's made a lot of money. But what did I say about no win? If he loses this, legacy done, right? Right?
Certainly damaged.
Certainly. This guy was going to go try to be 50-0. Rocky Marciano was tied with him at 49-0 to go down as one of the great boxers. If he were to lose to a guy that's never had a professional boxing fight, legacy is crushed. Crushed. I mean, it has to be.
That's an interesting question, because Here's a guy who's 40 years old, coming back after 2 years out of the ring or whatever it is. Does this diminish what he was when he was really at his prime and in his apex, when he was actually a fighter, as opposed to coming back to do this obvious money grab that everyone acknowledges is a money grab? And if he goes out there now and doesn't look ready and doesn't look good and gets caught by some ridiculous punch, does it diminish his legacy to some degree? Yes.
I think it crushes it.
The notion that anyone, who, if there are people, I don't think there are people out there saying he's the greatest fighter of all time. I don't think
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But yes, obviously he has a lot more. McGregor has literally nothing to lose in this fight.
Exactly right.
So long as he walks out of it, reasonably healthy. And Mayweather is the one from a legacy standpoint who has anything to lose, and no one expects him to lose it.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com.
Back to school time already? It sure is. Sport Clips Haircuts wants you to leap to the head of the class with our giveaway of back to school gear plus a year of free haircuts. Visit Sport Clips for the right cut and ask for the MVP experience. Then we'll take care of the rest. After all, winning hair isn't everything. It's the only thing. Review the rules and enter to win at sportclips.com/back to school. Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy. No purchase necessary. Ends August 25th, 2017. Must be 18 or older. Subject to official rules at sportclips.com. Void where prohibited.
1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Cookie1975 tweets, the beautician didn't sweep up the last 3 haircuts before she started cutting Greedy's hair, and that was all the hair that he saw. I don't know what to tell you. She cut a lot of hair off me yesterday.
She didn't.
There was a lot of hair that was on my head yesterday that isn't now.
You want to say that all you want. The picture speaks 1,000 words, and we got a picture out there, a split screen with you of yesterday and today, and your hair looks exactly the same.
Bobby Lee has it exactly right. He tweets, looks like I can see the part better, cut down some of the volume. That's what it is. It was the volume that was cut down. My hair doesn't grow long as much as it grows kind of up.
Whatever.
A little bit, and it was a little too thick.
Say whatever you want.
She got in there with those trimming shears. Whatever you call those. You stick them in there and you cut.
Thinning.
It looks like the thinning. Looks like it's looks like she's about to cut your entire hair off, and then it just sort of takes a little bit out of it.
My guy thins it out with a straight edge razor. It's really good.
Yeah, because you've got you've got hair that could kill a person.
You said Bobby has it right. I think John has it right. I'm agreeing with Golick about Greeny. Haircut looks the same, and the color looks darker.
It is, as God is my witness.
You got 3 strands cut and you got it colored.
As God is my witness, It was not colored in any way yesterday or any day. And you left out the fact that John did also hashtag just end the season. So everyone takes a shot at the Jets no matter what happens. No matter what they say to me, they take a shot at the Jets.
Well, it's an easy mark, and I also think that you now are just like Floyd Mayweather. You are just spitting anything you can right now to make it all sound good.
Finally, TJ tweets, I once told my wife she looked the same after a haircut. It didn't end well. Mm-hmm. All right, NBA schedule. I love that they did this. Okay, I think this is terrific. Brian Windhorst had a copy of the memo yesterday, a memo given to NBA teams this week in which the league outlined how it hopes to reduce the stresses of travel and give players a chance to recover more than in the past. It is a proactive measure aimed at player safety and to reduce the number of games in which teams rest healthy players. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I love it when the leagues, and in this case, my understanding of this is that the league and the Players Association worked in conjunction on this, sort of, figuratively speaking, hand in hand, trying to solve what everyone acknowledges is a problem. And no one wants to see fans disappointed, whether it's just the 18,000, and I don't want to say just because those are 18,000 people, but the 18,000 people that show up for a game in Memphis on a Thursday night that no stars play in, or the millions and millions of people who want to watch a game on Saturday night on ABC and the stars don't play. Now, they are going to protect those games more, and that is one of the things that they put into this scheduling, and I get it. Now, my sensibility as a fan, again, is still upset by the notion that you would say, okay, yeah, that's more important than this other game or all these. But I understand it. I understand at the end of the day this is a business. But here are some of the changes they made. Mike, you tell me what you think. Eliminating stretches of 4 games in 5 days and 18 games in 30 days. So no more of that. They've sat down. They looked at where the real problems are. There's no more 4 games in 5 days. The reduction of 5 games and 7 nights to just 40 instances as opposed to 90 instances over the course of a season. So basically, each team now will have 5 games and 7 nights once a year instead of 3 times a year.
Okay.
So that's a difference.
Sure.
Reduction in number of back-to-backs to basically 15 per team, down from a little over 16 per team, and all 40 back-to-backs were eliminated from last season. So just fewer back-to-back games in general. One of the things that, if you notice, you watch teams' records on the second night of back-to-backs, particularly on the road.
On the road, yeah.
It's ridiculous. Reduction of single-game road trips by 17%. That's a big one. And a lot of that, Mike, from what I was reading, has to do with arenas and their scheduling. Like, most of these teams have control over the scheduling of their own arenas.
Right.
And so they rent it out to, well, it's not the circus anymore because there is no circus.
Right, but
to whatever concerts whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so you wind up with these, trying to fit a schedule in there where all of a sudden a team, I'll just make this up now, are the Knicks. They take a, 1-game trip out to the Midwest and then come back,
right?
And that just doesn't make any sense.
That's a lot of time where you see some of the stars not even leave, not even make the trip at all.
Reduction in single-game road trips over 2,000 miles by 67%. So there you go. There are only 11 of them on the schedule now. Increase in weekend games significantly. Much of the boost coming on Saturdays. Previously, the NBA had avoided Saturdays and Sunday afternoons during football season to dodge conflicts. But again, that's another one where now, okay, well, you don't want to play on a Saturday, you don't want to play on a Sunday. Now we got to jam in games Monday and Tuesday and then an off day, then Thursday and Friday. So they're going to go up against the NFL. No, they might lose a few of those, but at least the stars ideally won't rest as many games.
Well, then you have to see what ratings are going to be. And obviously, basketball fans, that true basketball fans will go to those games. Will they go to those games instead of going? You'll find that out. Do the arenas still get full, or are people staying home to watch football? And do you watch it on TV, or are you watching football?
The schedule is expected to be finalized this week. Portions are expected to be announced soon. So, Mike, what do you think?
I think you're still going to have players rest. I think they're going to pick their spots better. I think what we've learned out of all of this is they're going to make a concerted effort to say, I think the overall message is, listen, we know where sports are heading. We're seeing everybody do the rest thing and how important everybody seems to think it is. So let's create now a schedule where, let's be honest, you're going to rest in games that are less important. And that's what's going to happen. So they're going to try and protect the TV games because they're going to make the point, listen, our lifeline is this money from the TV contracts. We know we got another 9 years of it, but let's keep everybody happy and let's get that lifeline going for decades down the road, not just right now. So let's make a concerted effort to have our guys there for those games. And then the other stuff they're doing, they're starting the season, a week earlier?
Yes.
Earlier
to accommodate some of this,
stretch everything out. So do I still think you're going to have players rest? Absolutely. They're going to pick their spots better. I think the overlying line I would give you is players are still going to rest. They're just going to – everybody's making a concerted effort for them to pick their rest spots better than what we've seen in the past.
You just made me think of something because the NBA is in an interesting place. You and I are old enough to remember that there used to be this feeling in all sports that fans wanted to fall in love with their players.
Right.
Like player movement in general was a bad thing because you wanted to sort of love your team and grow up with a player, see him grow through his career and all that kind of stuff. Player movement in the NBA at this point has gone to a level that is almost unimaginable. There's a story about John Wall I was reading on Yahoo. Entering his 8th season, Wall has the 7th longest tenure with the same organization of any player in the NBA. There are only 6 players who have been with any team longer than John Wall has been with Washington. Now, if you sort of close your eyes and say to yourself, how long has John Wall been in the league? It feels like the blink of an eye, right? It feels like he just got there. There are only 6 players in the whole league that have been on the team they're currently on longer than John Wall has been on his team. During this calendar year, the guys who got drafted the same year as him, which is 2010, DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, Gordon Hayward, Avery Bradley, all changed teams.
Right.
Wall is the last player from the 2010 draft who remains with his original team. So let me ask you this. All of this, it's incredible, right?
Yeah,
2010, that was yesterday. He's the only guy who was drafted that year who's still on the team that drafted him. So my question to you is, with all of this movement, I actually think that in that sport in particular, it's a good thing. watching all these guys change places, especially in a league that is as dominated by one or two teams as it always traditionally has been. For years it was the Lakers and the Celtics, and now it's Golden State and Cleveland, whatever else it is. Seeing Chris Paul go to Houston, seeing Paul George go here, and all these, watching the player movement, Gordon Hayward going to Boston, rather than that be a bad thing, which I think it always has been, at this particular time in this particular sport, I actually think it's a good thing.
I don't know if I don't know if I go all the way and say it's a good thing. I say it's the norm now, though. I say people are used to the norm. People are used to player movement. Again, I don't know if I would say it's great for the sport, but I think people expect it now and understand it. And I think one of the things for people, fans of teams that don't have any of those players, they immediately, when they see a player change, they look on the schedule and see, is that team coming to me? Am I going to be able to go see that player or these players? What does this schedule look like of teams coming to my team that doesn't have any of these stars? Am I going to get to see them at some point during the season? And will they be playing when I get there? And that's what the NBA tried to address here.
See, here's why I like it for the NBA right now. Because in a league where too much of last year you felt like this is just a waste of my time.
Right.
No one can beat Golden State. No one can beat Cleveland.
Right.
Let's just get to it. If you just left everyone kind of where they were, you would just have that again.
Well, yeah. So
now there's some uncertainty. Like, how good is Oklahoma City now with Paul George? Are they as good as Golden State? No, we don't think so. But it sure will be interesting to see what they are, as Houston too, and others.
As I said, I don't think it's overall good for a league when this happens. But in the time we are now in the NBA, it's accepted and understood why it's going on.
Yeah,
I get it. I still am not going to sit here and say every other year the stars are changing all over the place is a great thing for a league. But given where we are and what Golden State has, teams have to try and create a super team to try and take them down.
Like, I wonder if at the heyday, let's just use the most recent one, the Jordan era Bulls, the team that we really never saw beaten. You can even go with the Kobe Shaq Lakers if you prefer either of those. If we had seen this kind of player movement in that time, like, wouldn't it have been interesting to see if Karl Malone and John Stockton had added Charles Barkley?
Right.
And let's see what happened. If Patrick Ewing had added Barkley or Malone or
certainly
one of these great players.
Intrigue, yeah.
I mean, it would have been very interesting to watch what happened. Now, it never felt to me, at least, as though it was as foregone a conclusion that the Bulls were going to win then as it did with Golden State. Now, one way or another, again, it is that unique time when player movement might be a good thing. David Griffin said some interesting things about LeBron yesterday. We'll hear those, and you will hear a young man speaking his mind and the world's and Golik's reaction. All coming up.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. Mike and Mike presented by DraftKings. Try daily fantasy for free at DraftKings. Use the code Mike now at DraftKings.com. We will certainly be doing DraftKings like we've been doing every year, you and I and a group of people playing every week. And we have obviously this fantasy marathon coming up next week, which is really great. The explosion of fantasy football during our tenure has been unbelievable. And you and I never really jumped fully into it until just the last couple of years. It's crazy right now how big it is.
I enjoy the daily fantasy.
Yeah.
It's a quicker fix. I don't know if that's the right word for it or not.
No, that's a good word for it. And you know what it is for me, too, is less thinking of keeping a team year-round, which millions of people are doing, and they absolutely love it. If you're not jumping into it now, you're missing the boat.
I originally started doing fantasy sports a little bit purely for professional reasons. I thought it will help me keep my head in things I otherwise wouldn't be paying as close attention to. And what it winds up doing for you is, you wind up jumping up and down. You could be a kid like me, or a guy like me. I'm not a kid anymore, but it's someone like me, who roots for the teams I root for and follows the teams I follow. And all of a sudden, like, they cut back to the studio and Kansas City is running a punt back for a touchdown, and I'm jumping out of my chair because I have their defense and special teams.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's kind of that has made it more fun.
It's great. It's great. And stadiums have gotten into it by having, all the stats up about fantasy and what players are doing. I mean,
they have to now.
You absolutely have to do it, yes.
The experience, I've said it a million times, if there's one of the biggest changes that has taken place in sports in recent years, it's that television used to try as hard as it could to duplicate the experience of being in the stadium. And now the stadiums are trying to duplicate the experience of being in your home. 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, fielding tweets, NBA schedule changes will affect Vegas. I always bet against Road Dog's second night if they covered the first night, and many other trends. It is something to watch.
No, it is, but you know what they'll be? New trends. And everybody will figure out the new trends.
But that's my point.
That will change,
yes. To figure out what they are. I mean, someone will have to figure out what they are.
And somebody will.
Or guess what they'll be. Jamie tweets, there's a dilemma as NBA games will be played on Sunday during football season. That's true. That's always been a little bit the case.
A little bit. They're making a little bit more, and so you have your choice, you know, and you'll find out easily, A, with attendance, B, with ratings.
And then with all of this mockery of my haircut yesterday, which was far more substantial than people are willing to give me credit, I do like this tweet from Irish Steel, who tweets, Scott Van Pelt lost more hair than Greeny did yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're full of it. I think you are so over.
What do you want from me?
I
got a haircut.
Okay, I'm not saying you didn't get a haircut. Again, we have the split screen for those on radio. Andre, do we have this up on social media yet?
It's up.
Okay, it's up.
It's up.
Of Greeny yesterday and today said he got a haircut after the show. It looks exactly the same. I am not saying you didn't go to your salon and get a haircut.
Not a salon, it's a barbershop, but go ahead.
Whatever. And I'm saying you, as you normally do, would you admit you're an overstater? Would you admit you're an embellisher?
I'm a professional overreactor.
There you go. You overreact, overstate, and embellish the amount of hair you had cut off your head. I don't deny that scissors were put to your head yesterday, but I would say just a couple of times, and you said good, and you walked out, and she didn't have to sweep the floor. So that's what I'm saying is it doesn't look any different. That's why I didn't notice. You keep asking why I don't notice your haircut. You barely get any cut. Then he's gone.
I'm calling Tina during the break. I'm getting her on the air. We're going to get to the bottom of this thing. Maybe this
Tina doesn't want to lose your business. You give her $500 every time you step in the place, for a cut and color.
There is no color. All right, Mike and Mike. We will get back to the sports conversation in just a moment. But yesterday was a day. The second I saw this news, this is an artist that I was familiar with and certainly had one song that I knew extraordinarily well. But it's another one of those where when I saw it, the first thought I had was, boy, Golic is going to be really sad.
The Horse-Spangled Rodeo.
Glenn Campbell died yesterday. This was overwhelmingly his biggest song. At least to my knowledge, I remember this song being a very, very big hit.
It's from people I don't even know. And offers coming over the phone. Long battle with Alzheimer's. I mean, it was tough the way it was ending for Glenn Campbell. I feel horrible, obviously, for anybody in that state. But I love Glenn Campbell. I mean, I don't think you know as many songs as I do.
No, I don't.
I listen to him a ton. So give me another one.
Okay, here, I got another one for here. You want...
lineman. Wichita lineman.
Here it is.
My lineman for the county. Yeah, I love this song. And I drive the main road, searching the sun for another overload.
See,
this is a great song.
It's not a song I know, but it feels like you. Like it feels like a song you, because he's
storyteller.
He mixed country with sort of more traditional rock and roll.
Absolutely did.
It was a little bit of an innovator, I suppose, in that, and was very big in the 70s.
Huge. I mean, I was a huge fan of his. Gentle on My Mind, Southern Nights. I mean, so many songs that aren't as popular as some would think I've loved. I just love his storytelling.
So Glenn Campbell dies yesterday. Again, another one where I knew you'd be very saddened by that. I have one more song for us here. Let's hear it.
There you go. Southern Nights.
This song went to number one on the pop chart as well as the country chart. A resurgence of interest in older country stars brought him back onto radio stations in 1977.
You said it. He mixed it well. I mean, the storytelling of country music mixed in with the pop. I mean, he was fantastic. Loved him. I mean, I talk about Gordon Lightfoot all the time. Listen to him. I listen to Glenn Campbell all the time. I just love their voices, love the storytellings, love singing the songs. But so many good ones. I mean, from Honey, Country Boy, Honey Come Back. I mean, True Grit. I mean, it's just True Grit he was in, in the movie. In the movie, yeah.
The John Wayne movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. I knew that he was a singer. I didn't know he was in that movie.
He did some acting. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. Anyway, R.I.P. Glenn Campbell, dead yesterday at the age of 81. Back to sports as we continue in just a moment. Josh Rosen had some things to say yesterday. The world had a pretty loud reaction. I think Golic's will be somewhat equal. You'll hear it coming up next. Stay there, Mike and Mike.
Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Rob said that it's like the Hoover Dam, but for his armpits. Well, if it can hold back that much sweat, Rob, it must be good. Pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant for yourself at your local retailer.
Here we are, back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Twitter reaction continues to come in on, of all things, my haircut, which everyone is diminishing.
Lack of.
Lydell tweets, my haircut is identical to the old one. Andrea put up like a fill in the blank, like what can you say about Greeny's haircut?
Right.
And here are just some of the reactions. Identical to the old one, invisible, a trim at best. It's neater. I noticed it immediately. It looks awesome. And finally, Dennis tweets, I think your hair has grown since yesterday.
Maybe that's it, because it sure doesn't look cut.
Funny stuff. Thank you very much for all of that reaction and more. Will Cain is on the way. Hall of Famer Kurt Warner will join us in an hour. Louis Riddick today. Stephen A. from Las Vegas, who interviewed Floyd Mayweather yesterday, will join us as well. And we'll do next question in just a few minutes. But it was UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen who had everybody around the country talking yesterday in a far-ranging interview with Bleacher Report. He said a variety of things, including that football and school don't go together, and that human beings don't belong in school with our schedules. He has been, in the past, outspoken on the issue of amateurism in college sports. Here's a direct quote. Look, football and school don't go together. They just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do two full-time jobs. There are guys who have no business being in school, but they're here because this is the path to the NFL. There's no other way. Then there's the other side that says, raise the SAT eligibility requirements. Okay, raise the SAT requirement at Alabama, see what kind of team they have. You lose athletes, and then the product on the field suffers. That's one of many different comments he made. He also talked at length about the amount of money that is being made in the sport and the players not getting their share of it. He is an economics major. He's 20 years old, and he is projected to be potentially, if he has a really good year, as high as the number one pick in next year's NFL draft. So those are the issues on the table. Mr. Golic, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, listen, some of the stuff he says, I think we understand. There are some players that don't want to go to college, but they see a path, and not just in football. Obviously, we see it in basketball. They have to go to school for a year to be eligible then for the NBA draft. So there are things I understand in what he's saying. And when he goes on to say, when you're putting in the schoolwork, you have a bunch of people at the universities who are supposed to help you out, and they're more interested in helping you stay eligible. There's some truth to that as well.
Explain. Take that a little further.
Well, what happens is you have academic advisors at school, and in some places, some schools, some advisors, they will steer players toward easier classes, especially during the football season, to have a lighter load and hence to stay eligible. And others will not. Others will steer you to classes that you're interested in, along with the major that you have, but electives as well, to not overburden you or to challenge you. It all depends, on the student. But are there some places where they will guide you into easier classes so you can be eligible? Yeah, that's been going on for decades. But that isn't all they do. There has to be some responsibility on the student as well, saying that, I'm here and want to get an education. And, we can't just put everything. The schools dictate some of this, but players can have a say in it as well on what they want to get. But as I said, 1% make it to the NFL. 85% think they're going to make it to the NFL. So a lot of times they're going to follow the path of least resistance academically to be able to put their efforts into football. But that's a choice of theirs.
Let me ask one question on the scheduling.
With what he's saying.
I get it. You're going to have far more thoughts on this. There's one other thing I want to get quickly just on the scheduling, because you would know this and I would not, since you were a player and both of your sons played recently. I have to assume that football practice and other specific football-related team activities take place at specific times.
Yes.
And thus, there have to be some things, some classes I just cannot take because it would conflict with that, right? I'm just making this up. If practice is at 3 o'clock,
right, later in the afternoon,
you can't take a class that is a lecture from 2 to 4 in the afternoon.
My classes were done, depending on the day, at 2 o'clock at the latest.
Right. And that has to mean there are some things you can't take even if you want to. It just, by definition, has to.
Well, yeah, I guess there would be if they're only offered in the afternoon. And my major was business management. My classes to fit my major were Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I'd start class at 8 in the morning. Be done by 12 or 1 o'clock. Tuesday, Thursday, the classes were longer. They were 75 minutes, and I would finish like sometimes at 2 in the afternoon. And the load you carry now. When I was at school, they didn't have the summer school thing, so hours I would take would be from freshman year to senior year, 15, 15, 15, 15, 18, 18, 15, 15 is how it was broken down for me. Now these players can get 6 hours of credit out of the way in the summer, which can be a buffer, can either help you graduate early, or it can be a buffer for you. If you're struggling, you can drop because you have a little bit, to make up. I disagree with him completely as far as you can't do both. You can absolutely do both. And Josh, by the way, let me cue you in. You're not the hardest practicing guy out there, okay? Go look at swimmers, who are swimming in the morning, lifting in the afternoon, and then swimming in the afternoon, the amount of times they do it during the week. So to specific, I would have had a little more respect for what you said if you said athletes who are working 20 hours a week, because that's the other thing that we understand. They're allowed 20 hours a week. Do you go over 20 hours a week? You absolutely can go over 20 hours a week. You can do it by meeting on your own, watching extra film, working out more, whatever you want to do. But that's all athletes. All athletes at schools. And so I disagree with his premise, and I really disagree with the fact that he said football players' schedule, because there's other athletes out there whose schedule is tougher, who are working harder and are way more tired than a football player. I'm not saying you don't work hard, but what I'm saying is there are a lot of athletes who get to 20 hours a week, who do a little more than 20 hours a week, that are going on and doing school and doing it very well. So I disagree completely with this premise that you can't do both. You absolutely can do both. Now, do some steer you to easier classes? Yes. Are some players there fully with, I have to do this to get to the NFL? Yes. But in football, you have to do it for 3 years as opposed to 1 year in basketball. So some of the general things he said, I understand and agree with from the help. But universities want you to graduate. Right? They want you to graduate. So sometimes, do they try and put you on an easier path to graduate, given a particular student? Yes, that absolutely happens, because they want the number, they want you to graduate. But there are plenty of students out there who don't make it to the NFL, but practice 20 hours a week and go on to be scholars and have great grades, and go on and have no problem graduating. So I completely disagree with the premise. I'm more against what he said, because he just made it sound like football players are different than everybody else. The football brings in the money, unlike the other sports, but other athletes there are working just as hard or harder, as he is. So that's one thing I really took exception with, which is off topic a little bit.
The thing that I hear when I read these quotes is, I think, something that sometimes comes with youth, which is there's this feeling of, why can't I just have everything? And as you get older in life, you realize life is a series of making choices.
Yeah.
And it isn't about being able to have everything. It's delightful to say, and we tell our kids, you can have anything you want. You can have everything you want. The reality is life is a menu when you can only choose certain things from it. So as you read further into comments, he's talking about, well, if I want to take easy classes, I could get a degree in this, but I want to get an MBA. And okay, well, maybe you can't do all of those things. Maybe you can't take this specific major and be a football player. That's kind of life. That is kind of the way life works. Life is, and I would like, I don't even know what I make an example here, but as you get into your life after college,
right,
you can do certain things that will not leave you time to do other things. You can't do everything all at once. And that's sort of what I think I'm hearing him saying. The bottom line is, as I read his comments, some of them I think are just obvious. Some of them are I guess, remotely controversial. The fact that he specifically mentioned Alabama is going to make people upset.
Yeah.
He could have mentioned anybody.
Yeah, wait till Nick Saban gets asked about that.
But my point is, if he had just said, there's the other side, raise the SAT eligibility requirements. Okay, raise the SAT requirements across the board, and then you will lose athletes and the product on the field suffers. If he had just said that, no one would have argued with
exactly
it.
Right. But he specifically said Alabama.
He named the biggest, best team, so people will get upset about it. The overwhelming feeling I had coming out of this was I wanted to say, I don't understand the point you're making. I'm not 100% sure I get the point that he's trying to make. He doesn't like the amateurism set up the way it is. I generally speaking agree with that.
When UCLA got its new a deal with Under Armour
deal,
the 15-year, $280 million, he put it out on Instagram that said, what did he say?
We're still amateurs.
We're still amateurs.
Love nonprofit.
Yeah, exactly. So you get that all the time.
Well, I get that. There's a part of me that understands that.
Right.
There's a part of me that is willing to meet. I don't believe in the amateurism model exactly the way that it is currently set up either. And so I don't have any problem with the player expressing his problem. The overwhelming reaction I had to this, while I know the world was kind of set on fire by his comments yesterday, was I'm not 100% sure I understand what he's trying to say. If he's trying to say, look, we work really hard at this football thing, and thus, on some level, we don't have the same educational opportunities that let's just call them non-athletes, non-scholarship athletes, in this case, non-football players have. Okay, I get it. That's probably true.
But also, there are plenty of athletes out there who went on to play in the NFL or other professional sports that have economics degrees or other big degrees, according to Josh, and not, speaking like phys ed or communications or what people think are supposedly lesser degrees, which you still have to obviously work to get. Many players have proven you can. Many players have done that. So just the line, I guess if you take the line in a vacuum, football and school don't go together, I couldn't disagree more. With that. You can make it work. You have to make choices about scheduling your time and doing what you do. So don't tell me you can't put everything into football and then everything into your studies. If you want to, you can. So don't just sit there and make the line that you can't do it, because many players have, and many players outside of football have, as I said, who have just as hard of schedules or harder and are working just as hard as you, Josh, or harder, and they're able to do it as well.
The other piece of this is if the overwhelming point he's trying to make, the overarching point he's trying to make, is that he thinks it's wrong that you should have to go to college to get to the NFL, which is to say there are people who are there, as you pointed out, only for this reason.
Yes.
Well, that's true.
No. As I said, he said some true things. There are basketball is a better example. You think these guys want to go to college for a year? They'd rather just go from high school, but they have to go for a year, and that's even more of a mockery of the educational system. They only have to stay eligible for one semester, not the 1 year, one semester. So that's more of academics really means nothing to those players because they're out. For a football player, that's 3 years. But guys will just want to stay eligible. There are players that just want to make sure they stay eligible to try and take their shot at the NFL. And that's what I think is, I don't think it's wrong to have the dream of wanting to make it to the NFL. When I say 1% make it, there's nothing wrong with 85% thinking they can. There's nothing wrong with having that dream, but that doesn't mean you forego everything else. You can have that dream and work for it and still get a college degree. Josh, you can. You can do football and you can do school. You can do basketball if you're there for more than 1 year and do school. You can do swimming and do school. You can do lacrosse and you can do school. You can do these sports and you can do school. At some point, it is up to the student to make the choice to say, I want to do this, and I'm going to put myself in a position to do this.
So what he's saying is football and school don't go together. They just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do two full-time jobs. There are guys who have no business being in school, but they're here because this is the path to the NFL. There's no other way.
That's a separate statement to everything else because, yes, and those are players who have made a choice that say, I don't really want to be here. I'm going to take the easiest possible path I can because all I'm working for is the NFL. That doesn't mean you can't do both. It's that player's choice to say, this is the road I'm going to take.
And I'm not exactly, but that's the one where I respond with, Yeah, so what's your point?
Right.
I mean, there is
exactly.
You're right. Now, the NBA is trying to create. They're trying to build up their. Now it's called the G League. For years, it was the D League. That might give high school players a legitimate option of some place to go if they're not interested in college. There is no football equivalent to that.
No, there
isn't going to be in the foreseeable future. They've
not.
tried a million different things. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Basically, if you want to be a football player now, I have long been against the notion that you should have to stay 3 years. If a team wants to draft you, they should. But that went to court and lost. So this isn't changing. So again, my response overall to Josh, and I don't mind a 20-year-old speaking out and speaking his mind.
I don't mind it.
God bless you.
Sure,
good for you.
Sure.
If he said those things to me, I think my next question would be to him. What exactly is the point you're trying to make?
Right.
We all know there are people who are in college only because they want to try and make it to the next level, and there's no other way of getting to the next level. I'm not sure exactly who that's hurting. It is giving them an opportunity, again, because the overall majority of those kids who think they're going to make it to the pros aren't. So they will get an opportunity that a lot of other people will not have. We don't sit and worry about all these kids who are actually much more interested in academics, but don't run a 4.3 40, so they don't wind up in college at all. The system isn't set up to protect them or help them. No one's worried about them. We're worried about these kids who aren't taking, who aren't on a path to become doctors. To me, this strikes me as a lot of very obvious comments. I'm not even sure I understand what all the... If he hadn't mentioned Alabama, I think this entire interview might have come and gone and no one would have even noticed.
Right, and but again, he doesn't write the headline, but when a headline is football and school don't go together, I mean, what's one of the first things you think of? Who said this a few years ago? Cardale Jones, said that.
I didn't come here to play school. Yeah.
He even said to Josh Rosen, "Chill, bro. Just
he
play
tweeted
school."
At him yesterday. I saw.
Yeah, because Cardale got his degree at Ohio State. So while again, as I said, some of the stuff he said is true about classes and about players' paths and stuff. The overlying sentiment he has, I couldn't disagree with more, and it really offends me to the point when he just singles out football. I know that's the sport he's in, but just like you said, the general statement of if they raise the SAT scores, what some schools may have, but he specifically went to Alabama. If he would have said athletes who have to work 20 hours a week, that could be because all the athletes do. In all the sports, they get the 20 hours a week. So for him to just single out football, that took it to it. That gave it a little sour taste in my mouth.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works from you. Let's hear from you. Your thoughts on the Josh Rosen comments. We'll have Will Cain in here coming up in a few minutes. We'll get his thoughts as well. Meanwhile, here on Mike and Mike, let's do a quick version of Next Question, Golick. We'll go around the world of sports here, and we'll get a couple of the big questions of the day all over the place. Here we go. First question. What kind of impact will the NBA's schedule change have on star players resting during the season?
I think they'll still rest, maybe not as much, but what will be protected, I think, in all honesty, the most that was, while I think coming out of it, they'll talk about it in equal terms of we want to make sure fans that buy their tickets, the 18,000 in the arena get to see that star player. But I think this is about protecting the TV contracts and making sure those guys play on those weekend games, the big nationally televised games.
I actually think if I had to name specifically the impact, it'll be you will know with greater advance notice which games these guys are going to miss. I think you'll know that more. You can sort of look at the schedule and be more obvious to pick out the spots where there is significant jeopardy that you will miss one of the players. Next question. What is your biggest gripe with the Undefeated's list of the top 50 greatest black athletes of all time?
I can't have a gripe because it wasn't a 10-person panel who picked this. They opened it up to everybody.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons you have Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas 8 and 9 overall ahead of the, Satchel Pages and Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbars and Walter Paytons of the world and Bill Russells. And it's so I can't rip it. If you're asking a bunch of people, some that are 18 years old, 20 years old, 22 years old, and then some 60-year-olds, you're going to get a wide range of athletes. So it's very tough for me to criticize a public list. I can disagree with the order of some of this, which I do, but I can't criticize it.
I feel exactly the same way. This is just a popularity contest.
Right.
And so that's fine. I mean, if you're going to get into some of the specifics, the notion that Tiger Woods is not on it at all is ridiculous. The notion that Kobe Bryant is not on it at all is ridiculous. The notion that Bill Russell is 36th is so ridiculous it's hard to even put into words. But Bill Russell stopped playing 40 years ago.
Exactly right.
And the majority of people who voted on this don't know anything about it, and that's just the way the world goes. Right. So I'm with you. There are any number of things on the list that I think make no sense whatsoever, but this is just a popularity contest, and the recency bias is to be expected. Next question, true, false? Conor McGregor has the advantage against Floyd Mayweather on paper.
It's false, because what are you looking on paper? You want to look at height. You want to look at weight. Well, they're going to be basically the same weight. You want to look at reach and all that. Okay, that all goes on McGregor, but also on that paper is never had a professional boxing fight in his career going against a guy who's 49-0. Give me a break.
Right.
Give me a break.
The operative numbers on the paper are 49-0, not Mayweather's record, but the number of fights he's had and the number of fights McGregor has had. Mayweather has the advantage in every conceivable way. The statement is false. Next question. Do you agree with Herman Edwards that Dak Prescott is the worst quarterback in the NFC East? The others, of course, are Eli Manning, Kirk Cousins, and Carson Wentz.
Wow. That's an interesting question. Wow. I mean, Carson Wentz had a nice year, but I don't know if I would sit there and say Carson Wentz is better than Dak Prescott.
If you redid the draft right now, Carson Wentz went second. Dak Prescott went in the fourth round. Would you draft Prescott ahead of Wentz now?
You wonder because you'd have to stop and say, okay, wait a minute. Let's look at weapons around.
Yeah, if you flip-flop the teams they were on, would Wentz have done something approaching what Prescott did?
Yeah, because he had the better talent there. That is a tough question. Wow.
I'll give you some more time to think about it. I would say I do not agree with Herman Edwards.
Who would you
think in the NFC?
Do you think it's Wentz?
Yeah. If you gave me the option of those two guys right now,
I'd probably lean that way. Dak Prescott picked everything up so well, and you could sit there and say again that he had the luxury of the offense he had, but I just loved what he did. I think I would do that
as well. It's a division with really, really, really good quarterback play.
Yeah.
Next question. The owner of the Timberwolves saying he wants a face-to-face meeting with Andrew Wiggins before giving him a max contract is
right. He owns a team. He's the one signing the checks. You want to meet with a guy before you hand him $100 and some million? Why would I have a problem with that? I have no problem with sitting down and having a chat with that guy.
My response is something that should go without saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been the owner of a basketball team, but I can assure you if I was ever going to give anyone a max contract, I'd want to sit down and chat for at least 5 minutes. Let's talk a little bit here. Next question brought to you by Indeed.com. Post your next job opening on the world's #1 job site.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at LQ.com. All right, Will Cain is here to, Lord knows what trouble he'll get us into this morning as we'll go all around the world of sports with him. But the very first thing we'll do is I know that you two will bond over your mutual. The first thing you said when you walked in here this morning was you told us how much there was one thing that you heard today that you enjoyed.
That was Golick singing Glenn Campbell. Not just Rhinestone Cowboy, multiple songs, which I never had you pegged, Golick, for a country guy.
I'm an all country guy. I mean, now but even back then, I loved him. He mixed over into country and pop really well, the storytelling of country music in the pop world. I mean, I love the guy. I love so many of his songs.
Now we can have a beer because 1970s country, that's my wheelhouse.
There
that's
you go.
Where I live, right there. Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson. I bet. Green.
Yeah, me too. No, Waylon and I. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of notes here about Glenn Campbell, however. During a career that spanned 6 decades, he sold over 45 million records. In 1968, he outsold the Beatles Also, from December 64 to March of 65, he was a touring member of the Beach Boys, filling in for Brian Wilson on bass guitar. So a long and varied and extremely successful
number of movies as well.
career.
He was an actor.
I had no idea he was in True Grit.
Oh, yeah, he's in a number of movies, but in True Grit, 1969.
All right, so we start by bonding there, and now let's see where we go. With Josh Rosen in the news yesterday, we talked about it off the top of this hour, his comments about balancing school and football and all the rest of what he said. Will Cain, your thoughts?
I think Rosen sounds a little bit spoiled. I think it's very possible. In fact, we have a long history of athletes balancing football and education, football and school. He says it's a poor fit, football and school together. I think he's fighting a long history and tide of people successfully balancing football and school. And not just football, any sport and school. For that matter, life and school. I was a collegiate athlete. I know how hard it is. I know what it's like to wake up and have a practice from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then come back again and have a practice from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and to try to schedule classes in that window between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. and then again at night. It's difficult. But difficult and not fitting together are not the same thing. And I think Josh Rosen sounds spoiled because he doesn't know, apparently, what other students in the world go through as well.
But a way of you say spoiled. His you want to say about his upbringing. His father's a doctor. His mother, I believe, is a journalist. So I mean, he's had I would say I don't know where you would classify that as upbringing.
Comparatively privileged.
Yeah,
but that's that to me. I understand that it's worth bringing that up. This one thing to be spoiled. Look, I think that when you were young, this is the point that I tried to make at the beginning. When you were young, a lot of times, and maybe it is if you the more affluent the background you come from, the more you sort of mind is registered to think this way. Is you sort of feel like life is a series of limitless options. I want to be able to do anything, and that's probably true. But what happens is your mind takes that and says, I want to do everything. Instead of just anything, you've got a big menu and you can choose like one or two things. Like going to the restaurant of life, and you can get an appetizer, you can get an entree, you can get a dessert.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you say, I want everything on this menu.
Well, I think he did say he wanted to own the world.
Well, that's fine.
At one point, that was one of his lines.
That's a good thing to want.
Yeah.
I'd like to own the world also. We'd all like to own the world. Somewhere along the line, we figure out in our lives that's not on the list of options.
Yeah.
Here are the list of realistic options, and it sounds to me like he's a 20-year-old guy who kind of hasn't figured that out yet. I think you said it exactly right. There are some things, I'm sure there are some things that you cannot do in college if you were going to be a football player or a lot of other sport. What sport did you play well? I didn't even know that.
Water polo.
Water polo. Okay, so that's a brutal sport. I mean, that's brutal.
The bottom line is, that people listen to that. The bottom line is you have to work the same amount. You get to work the same amount of hours as everybody else. As I said, some of the other sports too. So it shouldn't be just singled out to football.
That's
players.
What I mean. So, okay, but I'm not going to go as far as you did with that because he's being asked that, so he's just saying football. I don't know that if you said to him, do you mean to leave out the other sports? He would have said, they're not much either. So I get that sort of offends you. That part of it didn't register with me as much as he just sounds to me like a guy who's saying, why can't I have everything?
Right.
And the answer is because life doesn't work that way. If you want to be a football player, you want to be the quarterback at UCLA, you want to have a chance to be, a high draft pick in the NFL and all that comes with that, there are some sacrifices that you make. And one of them might be the scheduling in college is not going to be specifically what you might otherwise want it to be because of the time constraints. That's not a football college thing. That's a life thing.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, by the way, wanting to own the world is also the motivation of every bad guy in every superhero movie.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily always a good thing. But see, the thing, this is why I say Josh Rosen is spoiled, Greeny, to your point. I don't even think you have to do an athletics comparison. It's not football against water polo against gymnastics. Do you know how many collegiate students have to work their way through college?
Right.
And how many successful people have to do so, not in the luxury of having an abundance of time, but because they have to squeeze it in. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter on her lunch breaks from her regular real-life job. People do this. People go and do great things while also doing the things that you have to do. And so that he has to go to school and schedule classes while also taking, multiple practices a day for football. That's tough. But that's not also making football and school a bad fit. You can do it, Josh. Many athletes have done it so far.
It's a great point about those that have to work along with going to school when they want to be probably, studying or doing their homework. They have to go, whatever they have to do, bust tables, to make some money to help pay for school or to work wherever, and then they have to find time to do it. So, yeah, it'll be interesting because we have my son on every Friday, and from what I understand from the text from my wife, he wants to jump into this, and he has a far different view on this.
Well, let me just say this. I'm also someone, I don't know where Junior is on this. I think I know where Greeny is, where I don't think athletes should be boxed into having to go to college to make their professional leap. I don't like the one-and-done rule. I think if you have a unique talent in the world, you should jump to being able to monetize that talent. But then let's not bellyache along the way about how difficult it is to do school and athletics at the same time.
I also don't think football lends itself as much to that because there might be, like every single year, there are probably 6 or 7 high school basketball players who could play in the NBA.
Right.
I don't know that would be the case in football just because of the maturation of your body. Ooh. These guys might get seriously hurt. You let an 18-year-old kid, there might be one a year, tops, who could physically handle what it would take to go to the National
go in there
Football League.
And to play right away as opposed to going into a lesser league, which the NFL doesn't have.
Right. It would be nice. It would be nice if there was some sort of preparatory league, but that doesn't exist.
As a whole, we have talked about that and agree with that, but that's, it's not there. Right. And it's not going to be there, especially in when we're talking football and the NFL. So you have to go to school and you have to play football when we're speaking specifically about football. And many have done it, and many have done it extremely well. So that's why it was a little eyebrow raising.
And again, by mention specifically Alabama, he says there's the other side that says raise the SAT eligibility requirements. Okay, raise the SAT requirement in Alabama. See what kind of team they have. You lose athletes, then the product on the field suffers. People will make a very, very big deal out of that.
I think he just picked the top team, the machine right now, right?
Do you have an issue with that statement? Is there anything about that particular statement that offends or upsets you, Will Cain?
No, I actually think Rosen has a point on this. If you think about collegiate athletics and football in particular, it's not really an equal playing field. To Booger McFarland's point, he spoke on this yesterday, Stanford and Alabama aren't really competing on the same playing field if they have different requirements of who can come in and be on that team. Different SAT requirements mean you're getting Stanford's just drawing from a smaller pool of athletes that can feed into their football team. So, I think that's a legitimate complaint Rosen has about making SAT scores somewhat comparative, but I don't know how you're going to fix it.
It's also not specific to sports either.
Right.
If you just look at who's going to get into what colleges in America, all of them are the highly selective colleges are taking fewer people and different levels
they are.
Of students
you
than
don't
others.
Have to go there. Notre Dame does the same thing. Their requirements are higher. You don't have to go there.
It doesn't have to always be about Notre Dame.
What's that?
It doesn't always have to be about Notre Dame.
Well, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
But Northwestern does too, and so do many others, and that's why. No, but that's just the reality of it.
Right.
So I've said many times that Northwestern, we're not going to be Alabama or one of these other schools like that because you're just not drawing from this. You are just limiting the number of people that could potentially come play for you. That's just the reality.
Here's the value of Rosen's comment on the SAT scores. College is a poor fit for many football players. College is a poor fit, as a matter of fact, for many students. We have over-expanded the idea of college is good for everyone, I think, regardless of athletics or not, that it's always the path to success. It can help, but it's not always the right fit. And taking on hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get yourself marginally better job prospects for some people is not the right path. So to Rosen's point, just because you can skate in because of your football ability and maybe not stick around once you get there because you can't hack the classes, I would love it for there to be another path to pursue football professionally. It's just that college is a one-size-fit-all for everyone right now, and that's not right.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, I don't know. It's hard.
I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
Our friend Will Cain is here. Kurt Warner will join us in just a couple of minutes. There's a lot of Twitter reaction to the Josh Rosen discussion. Let's save that, and we'll come back to it because I don't want to take up all of Will's time without getting to a few other things. The big story in football this week certainly was the Dolphins signing Jay Cutler out of the broadcast booth. What did you think?
I thought it was a great move by the Dolphins. Every single person I feel like that knows football, and I'll defer because I actually don't know where Golick is on this, so I walk a little bit with trepidation here, said this makes complete and utter football sense. This is a guy who knows Adam Gase's offensive system. In 2015, completed something like 64% of his passes and had one of his best career years. He can step in, and as all reports were from practice yesterday, light it up right away. Apparently, he had a great first practice, stepped right in, was nimble, completed passes all over the place. Jay Cutler makes complete and utter sense for the Dolphins unless you have another reason, like an agenda for Colin Kaepernick to get employed. I don't know how you could criticize this move for the Dolphins.
It was I completely agree with you. So you don't have to walk.
Okay, good. I made it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's twofold. The Dolphins wanted to take care of this year. They wanted, and the best way to do it is get a guy that knows the system, worked well under Gase a couple of years ago. The thought on Kaepernick was, if you're looking for a long-term quarterback, it's not mutually exclusive that Colin Kaepernick couldn't come in, learn the system, and play well. You can't say, well, because Cutler knows it, Kaepernick couldn't learn it and would struggle. He would learn it eventually, maybe do well, but it would also be a thought they're not on the hook with Tannehill at all after this season. So if they wanted to move on from quarterback, the thought is if they brought a 20-something Kaepernick in and he played well, he may be in line to be their quarterback down the road. But I think the Dolphins, and they have every right to do it, they were about this year. We were a playoff team last year. We had the talent to be a playoff team this year. Who's a guy that can come in, worked well for this coach, and knows the system right away? And that's Jay Cutler. And I think it was the absolute right choice for what their mindset was right now.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. We'll ask Kurt Warner his thoughts. Newly on the Hall of Fame, he'll join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line in about 10 minutes. Conversation we had yesterday, and it actually dawned on me when I saw that Roger Federer celebrated a birthday, because all the great ones are born in August. You may have noticed that. Mike Trout the other day, Sidney Crosby the other day, myself the day before that. And yesterday, Roger Federer turns 36 years old. If he wins this week, he's the number one ranked player in the world. Either way, he has won 2 of the 3 majors this year, 2 of the 3 Grand Slams, the only 2 in which he played, by the way. And he has a 71-2 record in matches, which is the best in the world. By any real standard of measure, he's the best tennis player in the world at the age of 36. And it got me to thinking about whether we have to start with Tom Brady turning 40. We have to start rethinking our concept of what is old now in the world of sports.
100% agree. Max Kellerman and I have had this debate many, many times on First Take, whether or not Tom Brady's approaching the proverbial cliff, because all history and evidence suggests that he is. But what I argue is you're not compensating for Tom Brady. Like the individual factors and evidence that suggest this guy is pushing the cliff out. He wants to play for another 5 years. I don't think there's much reason to doubt it. He wants to play at a high level for another 5 years. I don't think there's much reason to doubt it. He's doing everything necessary to make that so. And then I got to thinking, listening to you guys yesterday, he's not the only one. The best tennis player in the world on the men's side is in his mid-30s. The best tennis player on the women's side is in her mid-30s. The world's fastest man in the 100-meter dash was a competition between 30-something-year-olds. The best football player on the planet just turned 40. So one of two things is going on. Human beings, we're progressing and we're opening the window up through better diets and preparation and practicing how long we can be great, or it's PEDs. It's one of those two things that is making the window longer, and we need to recognize LeBron just got second in ESPN's rankings on MVP potential for this year. I think LeBron will be in the MVP race for the next 3 to 4 years, into his mid-30s.
Yeah, I mean, the best basketball players in his 30s, and LeBron in a sport where guys can come in at 19 years old. So, and we talked about this yesterday, and I do think a lot of it is the way guys are taking care of themselves, between rest, between supplements, between dieting. I just think we've all gotten smarter over the years in what we've done. I talked about in my years how supplements and working out was and where they are now. It just gets better. So barring injury, as I have said, I don't understand why we can't go longer in doing things.
Just because we never have. And in theory, right, where the level of athleticism of each of these sports has been elevated, whatever your athletic peak is, and that's not going to change. I would assume that's not going to change. What your athletic prime is not all of a sudden going to become 38 years old. Right. So as more and more people who are quicker and faster and stronger and thus athletically better are coming in behind you, it would seem illogical, no matter how good a shape you take care of yourself, that you would continue to be athletically on on that level at the age of 37. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, the only caveat I would say on that is quarterback is an exception to
Correct.
your rule
That's
because it's a mental game.
Well, Jay Cutler just said you don't have to be in shape to play quarterback. But you're talking about Brady. And look, I won't put anything past that guy. He's the greatest of all time. But I will take the under on 5 more years. I mean, no way.
Well, all right, I'll take 3 more years.
I'll take the under on that.
But then why isn't someone better than Federer? Why isn't someone better than Serena Williams? I mean, who's in their mid? Why isn't somebody better than LeBron, who's 32 years old? I mean, I think because of the way people can take care of themselves, they can keep their quickness and their ability longer to compete with those 20-somethings that are younger, stronger, faster.
All right, he is Will Cain, and we will get him in here every week and any other time we can find him. Thanks, Will.